ASMR video. Today we're going to be going over the shifts in the electoral map for 2020 to 2024 presidentially. Now, in this video, I have decided to whisper instead of doing soft spoken. Now, I would like some feedback on which one you prefer. I'm always open to trying new things. Now, of course, I'm just winging it, and am sorry if it sounds unpleasant, of course. I'm always appreciative of any feedback given. So, like I said, today we're going to be going over the electoral shifts in the electoral map for America. So, let's just get right into it. So we're going to start by labeling the safe states. These states will have no shifts to them for the next 4 years. It is extremely unlikely that these states will be in any form competitive on the presidential level. The safe Democratic states are California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, New Mexico, Illinois, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine's 1st District, and Maine at large, as well as DC and Hawaii. If I am doing, and Virginia. This puts Democrats at 212 safe votes. I have gone ahead and labeled Colorado and Virginia as safe, which some pundits still do not do. I am unsure why, as these states have shifted radically to the left of the American political spectrum, and it is extremely unlikely that a Republican will ever be able to do well in these states anymore as they shift further to the left. Now, the Republican safe states include Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, Nebraska at large, the 1st and 3rd District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, and Alaska. This puts Republicans at 125 electoral votes. The remaining votes are all toss-ups, one way or another. Now, while Democrats have an advantage right out of the gate, that is not necessarily true as you fill in the safe state or swing states. So going from left to right, I'm going to explain the shifts in America's political system, as well as the reason why these states are shifting Sunbelt region includes states such as California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and the Carolinas. The Sunbelt region is named that for the large amount of sun it gets as well as heat. So, as a result, it is called the Sunbelt. Now, the Sunbelt has been growing more and more democratic every single election cycle. As we can see, the ramifications of this in the 2020 election is Arizona and Georgia flipping blue for the first time in over 20 years. Now, of course, as I just spoiled, all of the Sunbelt regions, for the most part, are going Democratic, but I will explain them slowly. Of course, Nevada is dominated by the Las Vegas region as well as Reno. This allowed Biden to carry the state by 3.2%, if I'm correct, which is a margin that was a little bit lower than expected in the polls. However, it is still a convincing victory in the state. And as more minorities, the key is minorities, come into the United States via the border of Mexico and the United States, these states are shifting more and more democratic. It will not be long now until Georgia becomes less or more the majority of the population of Georgia is a minority, whether that be black people or Hispanic people, etc. So that is a main reason as to why the state has voted Democratic for the first time since, I believe, 1992. Because minorities overwhelmingly vote Democratic, although Latinx do not vote as Democratic, especially this election cycle. However, it is likely that Democrats will still be able to use identity politics to convince them to vote in large margins to their side. Nevada is an effect of this, and as a result, it is going to be going more Democratic as time goes on. And Arizona is another prime example of the Sunbelt region going more and more democratic. So, of course, as more minorities come into Arizona, as it is a border state, it shifts more and more democratic, with Biden being able to pick up the state for the first time in, I believe, 1996. I might be wrong on that, but I think it is either 92 or 96. And Arizona, along with the rest of the Sunbelt, is one of the fastest growing regions in the United States, along with Texas and Florida. And a lot of these people are minorities. Now, Arizona has just managed to vote in its second Democrat senator, which was Mark Kelly in 2020. The 2022 Senate election, which I did a video on and you should go watch. I went over how that will be a true testament to if Arizona will stay Democratic or not. In my personal opinion, I believe Arizona to be a Democratic realignment state. What that means is that the state is going to shift democratically, just as Colorado and Virginia did, until it is a very safe democratic state. It's going to mainly do this through taking advantage of how as of late, with their state just absolutely falling apart after Mark Kelly's victory and Joe Biden's victory, as well as moderate Democrats being able to appeal to the voter base here, as is how Kirsten Sinema and Mark Kelly got elected. Moving on to Texas. Texas is the big prize that Democrats always wanted to win. It is the more Republicans' California, and if Democrats can manage to take both California and Texas in the same election, it is exceedingly unlikely that they will be able to win. Be able to lose that election. And being as it's part of the Sun Belt, as you can have guessed, it is shifting rapidly Democratic. Now, Donald Trump only was able to carry away a 5.5% victory in the state, marking it as a true battleground swing state. And this trend is only going to be able to continue. The days of Mitt Romney and John McCain being able to carry Texas by around double-digit margins is now never the case, as this state is flooded with more and more minorities, and the college towns of Dallas and Austin being able to being turned more and more blue. This state is shifting rapidly Democratic, and it is my opinion that in 2024, this state is likely going to vote blue by a very small margin. It is also worth noting that in 2024, Ted Cruz's seat is up for re-election. Now, given that he doesn't resign in 2018, Ted Cruz only came away with a 1.5% victory over challenger Beto O'Rourke. It goes to show that Beto O'Rourke, who is not very liked, can come so close to beating Ted Cruz, who is also extremely unpopular. If Ted Cruz were to run for re-election, it is likely that Democrats would be able to get another blue senator, a blue senator in Texas, as well as flipping the state blue for the first time in, I believe, since Carter's administration in 1976. This state shifting Democratic goes to show how the Republicans have a traditional advantage with the Electoral College. Goes to show how they might be able to lose that as politics shift more south to north. Moving on, this is an easy one. Georgia is, of course, shifting massively Democratic, as the state has just voted in 2 blue senators in the same election cycle, as well as gone blue for the first time since 1992. This state, as more and more minorities take the reins and vote, and people like Stacey Abrams mobilize thousands of Democrats to be able to vote for the Democratic Party, this state is going to shift more and more blue for the time to come. There's not much to say here. Now, Florida. Florida is a weird state, one that I cannot necessarily pinpoint. It is one that I really don't want to give a classification to. However, if I had to, I would vote that for the meantime it is shifting Republican. Of course, Florida is much more Democratic than people gave it credit for, given that Trump was actually able to expand his margin than he did better than he did in 2016. This is because Cuban Americans are very, very turned off by what they consider socialism in the Democratic Party. As a result, Trump was able to do, I believe, 30.6% the same margin in Miami-Dade as Hillary Clinton did in 2016, Biden would have won Florida. However, he lost it by 3%. The Democrats have been doing very, very poorly. And in 2022, Marco Rubio is up for re-election. It is unlikely that he will lose his seat, as he is extremely popular in the state. While it is a growing state, it's going to be gaining 2 electoral votes. While it is massively growing, and it will eventually shift Democratic as more minorities come in and it's part of the Sun Belt, I believe for the meantime the Cuban Americans are going to be able to decide whether or not it'll shift Republican or Democrat, and it is clear that they have chosen Democrat or Republican. Next up, North Carolina, a more upper region that is part of the Sun Belt. This state is shifting Democratic. Now, the reason that this state is shifting Democratic is because more and more people are going to places like Charlottesville. The cities are growing and becoming more and more liberal. Of course, Biden was barely unable to carry away a victory in the state, as well as Cal Cunningham. However, I believe that the Democrats have a real shot of getting a blue senator in here in 2022. If they manage to do that, then it is likely that the state will shift even harder than expected. Being as the state has a large minority makeup that vote overwhelmingly Democratic, it is likely that the state will shift to the left as part of the Sun Belt trend, with the others except for Florida. Now, as we finally go up north, we have one more state to talk about, which is Nebraska. Nebraska's 2nd district, its 1 electoral vote, is shifting massively Democratic. Some people predicted that Trump would be able to carry this district. However, Biden managed to carry it by over 7%, which is a very, very convincing margin. As urbanized areas vote more and more Democratic, this is the only urbanized area in Nebraska, and as a result, will continue electing Democrats. However, this is due to redistricting. Due to redistricting, it is unlikely that this will be kept on the map, and things can change. Moving over to the Rust Belt, starting with Iowa, the state is shifting Republican. Most polls here, except for a Seltzer and Cole poll, predicted that this would be an extremely close race, which Trump will barely win. However, it came out that Trump managed to carry the state by 8%, which is absolutely insane. For something, it was such a huge polling error. Now, this state is small and has a mostly white voter base, and white people are traditionally more conservative than not. As a result, this state is going to continue shifting to the right until it becomes a Republican state similar to Colorado and Virginia. Now, Minnesota, this state, for the meantime, is shifting Democratic. Biden was able to massively expand on Hillary Clinton's margin of victory in Minnesota, going up by a whole 6 points to 7 points in 2020. Now, this state is going to be the last state of the Rust Belt to finally switch over, if you could even consider it part of the Rust Belt, to finally swap over to the Republicans. However, Democrats managed to keep their senator here, Tina Smith. And as as a result, the state is going to stay Democratic for a long time, probably until the late 2020s, when it'll finally start shifting Republican. As a greater reason I'll talk about in a bit. Now shifting over to Wisconsin. Wisconsin is trending very far to the right. This state was supposed to be a convincing Biden victory with 4 to 5%. However, Biden only won with a plurality of the vote, being only a 0.6% victory. Now, in 2022, the senator here, Ron Johnson, could definitely be unseated if he doesn't retire. However, that would be Democrats' last hope in the state as it trends more and more to the right. The reason for this is the Rust Belt, which is a place destroyed and desolated due to businesses constantly leaving as well as people leaving. As the state trends more and more, as the Rust Belt loses more and more jobs and its industry, the people turn more and more Republican due to populist ideas. These mostly white, middle to lower class workers are being appealed to more and more to the Republican Party, as the Democrat Party appeals more and more to minorities in the Rust Belt to gain more electoral votes, of which the entire Rust Belt region is not as many electoral votes as the Sun Belt region, which is important to note. And Wisconsin is, of course, not at all immune to this effect of its white middle-class voters shifting more and more to the right. In Michigan, of course, is the same thing. This state, which was meant to be won by 7 to 8% by Joe Biden, was only able to be carried by 2.8% in 2020, as well as Gary Peters barely winning in this state at all, with only a 1.6% victory against John James. This state is definitely not going to vote Democratic for much longer, especially considering how Trump managed to flip it. When you consider that in 2008, Obama won Michigan by an over-safe margin, which was, I think, 16%. Trump managed to change that in only 8 years by managing to flip it by 0.23%. Of course, the white middle class is voting more and more, and the white lower class is voting more and more Republican. And it is going to massively affect Michigan, and it is going to turn red. Ohio, of course, is an absolute no-brainer. The state is shifting massively Republican. Of course, it was won by almost the same as Iowa, which is absolutely mind-boggling considering Obama was able to carry it twice. But Trump was able to massively shift the electorate in Ohio massively in his favor, being able to carry the state by, I believe, 7.9%. As a result, and of course the effect that I have just talked about, Ohio is almost going to be a safe Republican state soon as the map shifts more top to bottom in terms of parties. Pennsylvania, again, is another state shifting more and more to the right. Now, as the Pennsylvanian climate becomes more and more socially conservative, the 2022 Senate race is the only chance for the Democrats have to even salvage their holdings in Pennsylvania, which is a very important state in the electorate. John Fetterman is probably the best bet the Democrats have, and he has announced a Senate bid the state. If he can manage to win, Democrats may be able to hold on to the state for another decade or so before losing it. But again, a Rust Belt state ravaged by companies leaving is going more and more Republican as Republicans can appeal more to the working class. Moving up to New Hampshire, I believe for the time being, it is going to be shifting Democratic. Just like Florida, this is likely not to last, as this state will eventually shift more and more Republican due to the same reasons as the Rust Belt. However, for now, Biden was able to carry the state by an 8%, I believe an 8% victory. And as a result, the Democrats will be able to keep their holdings on the state for a bit longer. Now, this might change in 2022 if Chris Sununu runs for senator, in which case he will likely win, and the state will shift massively to the right with a red senator. And the last place that we have to talk about is Maine's 2nd district, another district similar to Iowa and Ohio that Trump massively did better in. He, I believe, won Maine 2nd by 8%, when Biden was meant to win it by, I believe, 1 or 2%. Trump was able to carry this away by 8%. This is a very rural part of Maine, and votes more and more Republican every single time. Of course, it is likely similar to Nebraska that Maine and Nebraska's districts are going to be split, with each giving one electoral vote to the respective party. So if we fill in all of these states, you start to see how an electoral map could really look. Oh, that's not it. This could be a possible 2024 electoral map. As you can see, Democrats have a relatively convincing victory over the Republicans. Now, as this shifts even more into the future, we could see Democrats picking up Florida as well as New Hampshire. And of course, Republicans can still win in the states of Texas, Georgia, Florida, and Arizona, being able to flip their margins of victory, and North Carolina being able to flip their margins of victory. This looks much like a Trump victory, of course, but as things shift more and more to the top to bottom, as I have said before, this is what a possible 2028 or 2032 electoral map could look like. And of course, all of this is speculation based on current data that is already given and current trends in electoralism. Now, of course, this is not nonsense. There is basis for this, as you can look at the data and the margins of victory in the past yourself. However, of course, this is how I think a possible map could look out, with Democrats doing better and better with themselves. Of course, that is never always the case, and toss-up states still always exist. So of course, I'm not really sure how to end this video, but thank you very, very much for watching. Give me recommendations of what to do in the comments, give me feedback, I really appreciate it. Tell me if you like me whispering. I really like doing this type of content, so I hope that you enjoy it as well, and it incentivizes me to put it back out. If I am correct, in my last video and in this one, the quality is going to be fucking god awful. I'm sorry. something with OBS that I could have changed, and I only remembered now. So, in the next video, I'll change it to like 720 or 1080. Because right now I think it's like a new, like, 360. So, I'm sorry, you can count the pixels on the screen. Not like there's much to look at anyway, and to be fair, you should probably be sleeping right now, or relaxing instead of, burning your eyes out and staring at an electoral map. Nonetheless, thank you all so much for watching this video. Tell me what you thought, tell me what to do next. I love you all very much. So much, in fact.